Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Leadership Void podcast. I'm Enrique with my co host Vince, and we have another great guest for you. And I can't wait to this episode and all the things that she's going to be sharing with us today.
That's right. We're here at the greater Chicago area to speak with Jennifer Garrett, podcast host of Move the Ball. We're just so excited to have her closing out the month. So, Jennifer, tell us about you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. First and foremost, I'm excited to chat with you today. So, as you mentioned, I am the podcast host of the Move the Ball podcast. And so that podcast is also focused in a leadership space, looking at having conversations with professional athletes as well as successful entrepreneurs and Fortune 500 C-suite executives on how do you take their stories, their insights, their guidance, and apply that to your own life to be successful, whether that's looking to navigate your career, to be a better leader, to be more successful in your business. It's really going to help people to move the ball and reach that higher level of success in life.
I love the move the ball, theme because really leadership comes to play on that field, on any field, right? Whether it's baseball, basketball, football, soccer, and whatever other sports incorporates a ball. But
Yes.
how did you come to that? And also tell us a little bit about Move the Ball.
Yeah, so how it came to be was I have a book that was published back in 2013 called Move the Ball. The book was all about how do you take football, American football, specific principles and apply them off the field to be successful. Since that time, Move the Ball, the brand, has evolved beyond just football, and it's really about connecting the athlete mentality and leadership to success. And so whether or not you're a football fan or a sports fan at all, everyone can grasp the idea of moving the ball. So it's really, metaphorical for people to think about how can I move forward and move my teams forward as a leader to be successful and reach the goals that we're looking to achieve.
That's amazing. Moving forward, definitely result driven. I love the concept of Move the Ball. And how is Move the Ball holding up? And what are you currently doing?
Yeah, so Move the Ball has been great. So right now I am actually on a break. So I'm in between seasons. So the season 2 kickoff is going to be March 1st of 2021. So save the date. It was originally going to be the day after the Super Bowl because that's when I launched it last year. Great theme, but I just wasn't going to be ready. I had surgery last month, and sometimes we have to shift things. And as a leader, it's important to recognize when you might have to push out timelines, and that's okay, right? You want to set yourself up for success. And so for me, I knew realistically that the day after the Super Bowl wasn't going to happen. So March 1st, 2021 is when we're having it. And we've had some great guests, lots of professional athletes, mostly football on the show, but also some wonderful executives and entrepreneurs sharing their insights and how do you weather the storm, especially what they've done during COVID. This last year has been really a time of adapting and adjusting, right? And so that's something we focused on a lot on the show is how do you adapt, adjust, and navigate so that you can continue to not only survive, but to thrive in this new environment.
I love it. The perfect timing, right? Right after the Super Bowl to launch this thing. And I wish you a speedy recovery on your end so that you can make that March deadline and launch this season 2. We're excited for you and looking forward to seeing that content come out. Now, we've all had to pivot some way, some shape, some form.
Yes.
What's on the horizon for Move the Ball?
Yeah, so really my goal for this next season is to have a higher level guests, meaning people that have reached a higher level of success, whether that is in terms of financial success with a business or in terms of the impact they've made in the world, because success isn't just all about numbers, right? There's many ways to define that. So I really want to get those people that have made really a positive impact on the world and have been influential in many ways. So that's really a goal for me, is to continue to level up, if you will, the guests that I have and the stories that they have to share and the value that the podcast brings.
I love that level up concept and the influential piece. It's so
Yes.
pivotal and so important. So let's transition a little bit into your own leadership
Sure.
discussions, as this is the leadership void. Uh, what professional development areas do you work on to improve your capabilities as a leader?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I've really been working on and that I'm continuing to work on is the connecting with people through stories. When I was so just a little bit more about my background, spent 20 years corporate America, worked for a number of big Fortune 50 companies, primarily in the military, aerospace, defense space, also served in the military, still serving in the National Guard today. And so it's very different when you're an entrepreneur versus in the corporate space. And I've really been learning about how you can connect better as an entrepreneur with your audience, be more influential, not just in the corporate environment, but in the public space and social media. So for me, it's really about having that courage to showcase your vulnerabilities, right? You don't always have to be on, and using those vulnerabilities to build human connection and really form trust and relationships, because that's what leadership is about, building connections so people will follow you and support you and do whatever it is you're looking to do. So for me, it's continuing to drive content through stories, through compelling stories, and sharing more of my background and not being afraid to share those vulnerabilities, if you will.
That's wonderful. Now, you mentioned your background and a little bit more of your background, which is I was hoping that you throw that veteran piece in there. And
Yeah.
active, right? You're still active in the military community. So having the corporate background, having the military background, and seeing a myriad of leadership stages, right? Because I know that you went through those stages yourself. What
Yes.
would you give as an advice for emerging leaders coming up now?
I would say the big thing, right, especially right now with everything that's going on, is transparency and connecting with people. It's really about those human connections. Remember that at the end of the day, your employees are people, your customers are people. So if you can build those relationships based on, being a good human being versus trying to sell your product or drive results, it's really about connections with your employees, with your customers, with your partners. And that's what's really going to help you to propel yourself as we continue in this new normal. And we're still in uncertain times. We don't know what the rest of 2021 is going to hold for us. 2020 was an interesting year, to say the least. And I remember seeing all these posts about how everyone was glad that 2020 was done. But 2021 is still an extension of that, right? It's not like there's an on and off switch. The year has crossed over and now everything's different. We're still in a pandemic. There's still some uncertainty with what's going to happen economically, politically. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we're dealing with. And so if you can stay connected to your people, that's what's really going to matter right now. Because there's a lot of people that are fearful of different things, of losing their jobs, of what's going to happen, going forward. So you have to maintain those human connections.
Absolutely. I mean, I wish there was an on and off switch, to be honest with you. But, reality is we can't, there's no such thing. But building
Right.
these connections is pivotal, because it involves building trust, having communications. Social isolation is real, right? So you have to build
Yes.
connection. But in this area of advice, what you gave, there's challenges that we have faced. So very curious to hear from you, how do you handle challenges you either face or you're currently facing?
Yeah, so I think it's important to remember what kind of energy you're putting out there. We talked about influencing, right? There's a lot of negativity out there and a lot of noise. And I think as leaders, it's important. Look, we all have emotions. We all get frustrated. We all get upset. We get happy. But you need to think about, what is the image that I'm putting out to the people that are watching me, whether that's in the physical space, in the virtual space as you conduct your day-to-day business, or on social media. Are you putting out vibes that are positive and that are encouraging and uplifting people, or are you contributing to the negativity that's around? And I see it's so easy for people to just get caught up in that, oh, let me just react to what someone said because I didn't like it. And what you're doing is you're just contributing to the noise and the negativity. It's not productive. And so I would say that's one big thing that I'd really want people to call to action. Take a look at what you're putting out there, right? What kind of energy are you bringing into any space, whether it's virtual or in person or on social media, and making sure that you're really lifting people up and encouraging them instead of trying to tear them down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to be faced with a myriad of issues throughout this next year. You mentioned the on-off switch. We
Mhm.
all wish that we could do that, but realistically, as humans, it doesn't happen. So we can't really expect that as a nation, to do that. But it takes some strategy to navigate these different issues that come up and put ourselves in a position where we can actually succeed. So, can you share some strategies for those leaders out there that are looking for ways to ultimately succeed?
Yeah, so I think aside from the things that we already talked about, you need to have a team. Just like in sports, right? A team is what's going to help propel you forward. So look to leverage the people around you, your key players that can help you to influence, to drive the results that you're looking to achieve those objectives. So I think that's one thing. And I think another thing that's important is really getting into a good routine of productivity. So what I mean by that is I like to get organized each week. And so on Sunday, I think about, okay, what are my priorities for the week? And then I kind of work through those things. And I think you need to think through that for your teams, right? What are our critical priorities and what are things that might not be as important? Because the reality is people are overworked too. And you have to be mindful that you've got kids that are still at home. So now you have this other layer on top of your already demanding job. So really focus on how can you lean out those non-value added activities on a weekly basis and really focus on the right tasks and the right activities so that way people don't become overburdened. People are stressed out already, so try to relieve some of that by uncomplicating how much needs to get done every week. That doesn't mean you're not less productive. That means you're just focused on the right things, right? And making sure you're engaging your teammates to make sure that you are focused on those right priorities.
Yeah, the engagement is so critical right there to engage with those right priorities, as you mentioned. So engage with your team, engage with yourself as well as a person, because
Yeah.
sometimes we also know that stress is real for us and it does replicate to the other teammates. So that's great advice, great strategies. I'm just intrigued. I'd love to know how folks in our audience can connect to you or connect to listen in at Move the Ball podcast. So, how do they get a hold of you or chime into the podcast?
Yeah, great question. So the podcast is on all the major podcasting platforms. I also have a website, movetheballpodcast.com, that you can always listen to it there. And then it has links to those major platforms as well. So you can listen, hopefully subscribe so you can catch many episodes. And then I'm very active on LinkedIn too. If you just search the hashtag Move the Ball on LinkedIn, you should find some of my posts and you can connect with me that way as well.
That's wonderful. Now, folks, I'm going to make sure that that is part of either the video or the notes so you can connect with Jennifer. I really appreciate the time that you've taken out to not only share your background, share your adventure, but also share the knowledge that you just gave us all. Folks, if you want to get in touch with us, the leadership void at gmail.com is where you would send any inquiries, any requests, any comments. You can also leave those at our podcast as well. But Jen, thank you so much for what you're doing in the leadership arena, touching on those sports, people and professionals that a lot of people don't get to talk to,
Mhm.
but you get to do that, and we appreciate what you're doing and bringing into the leadership realm, especially with your background. Thank you for your service and your continued service. Vince and I happen to be very happily retired, but you're doing the job right now, and so we honor that service.
Well, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. And Jen, I want everybody else to know that, season 2 starts March 1st, 2021. So Move the Ball podcast is going to be new and improved season 2. So stay tuned for that. Great things. Thank you, Jen, for being on the show. Next week, we're going to New York to speak to a great CEO. So stay tuned. It's going to be some great information, some great wisdom. For those who know that we're trying to reach our goal of 100 subscribers, our YouTube channel is needing you to join and hit that button. Once you do that, you're going to put your name into the drawing of a wonderful book, From the Prairie to the Pentagon, by one of season 1 guests. So we are probably at 75 right now, but we want to get to that 100 by the end of January. And lastly, we started Radio Check. It's a buddy check, 1st and 15, $1,900, 7 o'clock p.m. Just to check on everyone. It's a live feature. I hope you join in. Some great things are coming. We look forward to next week. But today, Jen, we thank you. Move the Ball podcast, season 2, March 1st. Thank you.